2-1. I think that's the car, but I'm not sure. Westbound 105, so you can start angling right. Copy that. No weapons involved in the robbery. I think it's one of these cars here, but I'm going to lose it beyond the sound wall. He's in the gutter lane. Shoot. Oh, man. Where are you? That was it. I think this is it. He's got heavy damage on that front passenger. Okay, I got eyes on it. Let's stay on this side of the freeway if you can. But we're going to go west, so let's turn right. You can turn right. I'll keep it in the shot. Shoot, yeah, keep going. You can go south side of the freeway. We're first. He's right out your side, Enrique, about 2 o'clock steep in the slow lane. He's 1 o'clock right now. You can speed up a little bit. He's in the number 3 lane, number 2 lane behind a white truck. All right. He's now in the HOV lane, right under us, 2 o'clock. You're good. You keep the speed going because he's going pretty.
Forced the LA County Sheriff's Department to put this into tracking mode. So they are tracking it from up above as he has crisscrossed several freeways over the last several minutes. The first thing you notice as we pull up on scene here is some damage, some light damage to that rear left fender. These are robbery suspects, apparently suspects, not exactly sure how many people are inside the vehicle. Heavily tinted windows from all sides there, making it very difficult, not only for us, but even law enforcement to tell what's going on inside that vehicle. He was driving very fast, very erratically, and now slowing down with the pace of traffic now that he is on the 105 freeway, again continuing westbound towards the 110 freeway as he makes his way through the Watts area, crisscrossing all of those painted lines there. He was hugging that carpool lane for a while, but you can see he is all over the pavement as he continues, now accelerating past all of that traffic in his way. It's pretty light as he continues his way westbound. If he was on the eastbound side, it'd be a different story. Much heavier traffic in the opposite direction. He may very well get off the freeway. He's been on surface streets over the past 30 to 40 minutes as well. Again, they are trying to maybe get CHP involved here, but right now, only that LA County Sheriff's Department helicopter tracking his movements, David and Ellen.
Right. This started in Lakewood, and it's continuing on. Look how open the freeway is, which is fairly unusual for 5 o'clock in the afternoon, but sometimes it happens when we watch these pursuits. And as you said, he was really going at a high rate of speed, but now, even though he's passing up a lot of cars, I wouldn't say it's highly unusual to see traffic going at that level. But what about when he was on surface streets? How erratic were the reports of how he was behaving? I haven't seen a whole lot about that.
I haven't either, only to say I've seen words like wild, I've seen it high speed, but I have no visual or eyewitness accounts of exactly what they were dealing with. But the mere fact that they were forced to pull off of the hot pursuit tells you that the driving was just getting too risky for them to continue that pursuit, despite the fact that this was a robbery. Apparently, we are now understanding that there was no gun involved, so not an armed robbery, but a robbery nonetheless, and unclear again, how many people are inside of there. So it does look like, as the traffic conditions warrant here, they may actually have an opportunity to bring CHP into the picture. CHP is monitoring the movements of the vehicle. Whether they have anybody in position to take it over, that's a different story. There was some officers on the 5 freeway that were perhaps ready to do that, but now that he is kind of switching it up on them, perhaps getting off at the 110 here as he gets all the way over to the right lane. That's going to put him on a 110 transition. We'll see if he goes north or south here, hugging that right lane. Probably going to take it northbound. Northbound 110 freeway. Getting off of the 105 here in Gardena on the 110 northbound as he makes his way into much heavier traffic. He is going to regret this decision in the next 2 minutes here, as traffic will come almost to a halt near the top of your screen there. So he's in for a rude awakening if he thinks he's going to get anywhere fast. Maybe an opportunity for CHP to get involved here if they can get through the traffic themselves.
Right. This is really one of the most awful places to be during rush hour, and that is heading towards downtown on the 105, almost a guarantee, and there he's hitting it right now. It'll be interesting to see what his behavior is as he tries to navigate through this. Of course, he's utilizing the shoulder a bit, but keep in mind he's in tracking mode. So right now there are no units behind him. I don't know if he's aware of the helicopter overhead, but it does seem like he's a little bit more settled down.
And that's always the question, right? This is where you want to see how is his behavior going to change, considering that there's nobody right behind him. Is he going to try and blend in and just start driving with the flow of traffic, or is he going to resort to some more desperate moves? Is he going to ride that shoulder? Is he going to just jump off of the freeway altogether so he could find another place to either dump the vehicle or hide out? Again, unclear whether this vehicle belongs to the driver or if the vehicle itself is perhaps stolen property. Always a good shot, but we just don't know in this particular case. In any event, he's getting over to the left, which tells you he may be committing to the 110 freeway. It breaks up a little bit after the next mile or so, and then it slows down once again. Definitely a more normal rush hour on the 110 as opposed to the 105, as you saw those empty lanes earlier. But this is a much different challenge for him, assuming LA County Sheriff sticks with him here. So we'll see what happens if anybody else gets involved here. But right now, he is pretty much stuck on the 110 freeway.
All right, we are now transitioning to Eyewitness News at 5 o'clock. I'm David Ono, along with Giovanna Lotta, who is now also transitioned with Ellen Leyva as we continue to watch this pursuit. Giovanna.
Yeah, that's right. Chris Christie, I've been watching this, and you mentioned that the suspect in this vehicle was involved in a robbery, but he was not armed that we know of. Do we have any other details about that attempted robbery?
Unfortunately, we don't. That's about the extent of what we understand. They are trying to get, look at that, a wild move over those double yellow lines. Here's some dividers that actually stand up, dividing those main lanes from the carpool lanes there, but or maybe out of the express lanes there. But you can see he's jumped over to the main lanes. We don't have a whole lot of information surrounding the crime that was that occurred here, apparently in LA County Sheriff's Lakewood Division. But in any event, it was definitely, it leads you to believe that it may have been a fresh crime. Perhaps this this afternoon that it occurred where they were able to catch a beat on him. Otherwise, there are other ways that this pursuit could have been initiated. But they are trying to gather a lot of those details themselves right now. From what we've been able to gather, they are still working on piecing this crime together. But in any event, he is still refusing to pull over here. Not that he has anybody right behind him, but still seeing a certain amount of agitation. Just the way he jumped over those double lines there, you can see the driving has not been entirely composed, but not entirely erratic either as he starts to hit some slower traffic. We'll see what he resorts to here, or if anybody else decides to get involved, and that'll be indicative of just how far they decide to take this. If LA County Sheriff stays over it, certainly the freeway is the best place for him to be right now. If they do want to get involved, he's just going to spend as much gas as possible on the freeway, unless he takes it back into the streets of South LA, which is where we are.
Right, that could be a real problem. At least he's staying within traffic. But as you said, it is a bit sticky. He even used his blinker, Giovanna, so maybe he's trying to kind of fade in with everybody else. Keep in mind there are no units behind him, so maybe he is thinking, has he gotten
able to get away?
Yeah, has he gotten off the hook on this one?
Well, the upside, obviously, with the traffic is that it will slow his speeds. But now he was very eager, as we saw just moments ago, to take advantage when traffic opened up a little bit, and then he sort of took off. Although so far he's been within the freeway driving ranges.
Well, surface streets right now.
Yeah, he was doing about the speed limit on the freeway, and now he's just decided he's had enough. The traffic was too slow. I had a feeling that was going to happen. Now we'll see if he completes this left turn here or dumps the vehicle under the overpass, a frequent tactic by a lot of these pursuit drivers. We'll keep a close eye on the right side of that freeway. Adam, by the way, Copy that. All right, we're keeping a close eye on the right side of the freeway as we try and keep eyes on this. We are being directed by air traffic control, but you can see now, we did not see the vehicle, but yet we see these black and whites coming through here. Unclear whether they could see them. I don't know if you guys saw them, but a whole bunch of LAPD units now coming out the other side on Gage Avenue. That is going to be the westbound side of Gage Avenue, and for my money, I did not see
in front of other vehicles, and this is a really difficult area for us to operate in because of the LAX airspace, so we're just going to do our best to keep tabs on it from a distance, but really high speeds again on Florence coming up to Maine.
Bound turn. Go left. He's on this major, we're coming over. He's going to turn right, go right, southbound. Make a southbound. Southbound turn, 12 o'clock. The street.
And basically,
Going southbound. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, very dangerous. And I should add that one of the things that deputies were wondering was whether a weapon was used in the robbery. So the information that they got back is that it was not. So there was no weapon used in the robbery, so they don't believe that this person is armed. And continuing, though, here on Broadway, coming up to 85th Street, slowing down just a touch. And Carolyn, you were mentioning the concept of going into tracking mode or even backing off. And really the concept behind that is that the Sheriff's Department thinks that maybe if the vehicle doesn't think that they're being pursued, then maybe they'll slow down and start to drive a little bit more carefully. And sometimes it works, but a lot of time it doesn't. And in this case, even though there's no one behind him, he's still driving very recklessly and is now getting back on the 110 freeway, headed southbound now. Southbound 110, Harry. And another thing we heard was that a weapon was not used, so that's good news there, that they don't believe that this person is armed. But the driving has been so incredibly dangerous. There was a point where he crashed into a number of parked vehicles and then just took off. And speeds like what you're seeing now is what we've seen throughout this pursuit, roughly 80 miles an hour or so on a very busy freeway here on a Monday afternoon on the southbound side of the 110 freeway coming up to Century. So next freeway that he's going to come up to will be the 105 freeway, which he's been on before. He was over near the 105 and the 605 for a good portion of the time before making his way westbound and joining the northbound 110 freeway, which he has now reversed course on and is headed southbound. Yeah, 95 miles an hour. That's what makes it so dangerous, because the freeway's pretty busy. So there's going to be slower moving vehicles in front of him, and these are really high speeds. And there's no ground units behind him. There's no patrol units behind him. So there's really nothing for other drivers to know that this vehicle is coming their way. Southbound. Southbound. Southbound, Harry, south. Yeah. Yeah, I'm back with you guys here. Yeah, we are navigating the difficult airspace that LAX can be at this time of the day, but we're southbound on the 110 freeway at the 105, just passing by El Segundo, and he's in the carpool lane. Fortunately, traffic on this stretch of the freeway not as bad as what we saw there in South Los Angeles. Yeah, as far as we know, this is not a stolen car. So as long as those plates actually correspond to the vehicle, then deputies would have had an opportunity by now to run the plates and figure out where the vehicle is registered to. And so what they'll typically do in these situations is send some deputies to that location and just wait for the car, because oftentimes people will just return to an area that is familiar to them. They'll usually just go home, they'll go to a friend's house, and they can try to take them into custody then. Yeah, absolutely. All the in and out of traffic, weaving in and out of lanes like that, it is very dangerous driving. If he could just stick to one lane, even if he's going 100 miles an hour, that would be so much better than what we're seeing, because he is really all over the place. And one wrong move and there's going to be a collision, and hopefully nobody gets hurt. But there has been one crash already when he crashed into a number of parked vehicles and then continued on. That is when we first heard about the chase, and it's been going on now for quite some time. I'd say about the last 30 to 40 minutes at this point. Yeah, absolutely, Colleen, and I can see some of that slowing coming up here in the next few miles, so you're going to get to witness it here firsthand. But as you said, with a lot of that port traffic, there's a lot of vehicles coming up ahead, and he may get stuck in some of that. Yeah, it looks... He did miss his chance there. I hear that he may be...
That was the 110 rather. That was the 105 previously. That last major spaghetti overchange, and the next one is going to be interchange, I should say. And the next one's going to be the 405, just a little further south of here.
Chris, it's looking like he's going, what, 80, 90 miles an hour?
He's picked up some speed for sure, now pushing about 95 to 100 miles per hour, finding a little gap in between these cars here, and you see the sheriff's helicopter right on his tail. As long as that sheriff has a visual on him, they are going to have a lot more time to get more units in position, and eventually, possibly, especially with this driving, the way we're seeing it escalate here, you can't help but notice a lot more damage on the right side. Look at that, a wild move over the gore point, almost losing control there. A very quick right turn there onto the, that's the exit ramp, I think, to the 405. We'll see. That might put him on the southbound side of the 405. Not sure. He's at the 405. That was a wild move, and I'm noticing a lot more damage on this side of the vehicle, both that rear fender, that rear bumper, and some heavy front-end damage on the front right wheel there. That front bumper is also in sad shape, so he must have made contact here or some previous collisions that this car was involved with. There was a report, guys, that he may have crashed into a Sunglass Hut. Not exactly sure where that happened, but at some point earlier on in this pursuit, he did collide with a building, and certainly starting to see evidence of a collision now.
Right.
He's on the 91 now. Is that correct? Eastbound?
91. He is on the 91, and it looks like he is traveling, yes, he is traveling eastbound away from the behind him. Look at that.
Well, here comes some questions when it comes to dealing with the end of this pursuit, and that is, you notice how tinted the windows are, so we can't really see inside this vehicle. Have you heard any reports of this as one suspect or multiple suspects?
Look at this through a busy intersection.
Flying through.
Yeah.
That's super dangerous.
Close call.
I know that from their knowledge, from what we're hearing, they were trying to determine the very same thing. I heard them use plural language, which leads me to believe that there are more than one people inside that car, but so far no confirmation, as they have been struggling to get an idea of what's going on inside that vehicle as well, largely due to those heavily tinted windows and the driving just being, it's escalating right before our eyes here. Every time he gets off the freeway, you see these antics, especially with the knowledge that there is a CHP unit only 100 yards behind him.
Well, this is going to be scary if this behavior continues on these little surface streets. The good news is this is largely an industrial area. It looks a bit less traveled, at least at this very moment, Chris.
Yeah, this is a more industrial area that he's decided to get off at here. He's on Broadway approaching Walnut Street in Compton, and now I think I saw a second unit getting behind that primary unit, and maybe when they have just enough units, they'll have an opportunity in an area like this. I mean, these intersections are still pretty busy. You can see he's going through every single red light here, so no signs of obeying any of the street signs or traffic laws, but if there's an open enough road without any other collateral, you know, in the way, they may give the go-ahead for a pit maneuver, but not at these speeds. He's going to have to slow down tremendously for the permission to be given to go ahead with that pit maneuver. If he can establish any kind of a pattern, obviously, you might see a unit ahead of him try a spike strip. But right now, the conditions are just not ideal, although this particular Albertoni Street is relatively light traffic, seeing relatively light traffic. And the wrong way. This is a desperate driver who, while we saw some fairly manageable driving on the freeway without anybody behind him, now that those officers are on his tail, his behavior has changed dramatically. And look at this. I think they may have given the go-ahead. If he slows down just enough, you're going to see that Explorer right there, that Interceptor, just pull right up on his tail and try and spin him out. But that was an aggressive acceleration right there as he was slowing down. It looked like he was maybe going to give it a shot, and right then the driver stepped on the gas pedal. So now 2 units that we can see here right behind him. Is there a third, Josh? Is there a third one behind him, or just those 2?
No.
Just those 2. Okay, 2 black and whites right behind him, and a little more traffic here. He's going to jump the curb. Jumping the curb on Albertoni. That's going to be his way back onto the freeway if he can navigate this. There is now 1 CHP officer behind him and 1 sheriff's unit behind him. And look really closely. There goes the navigate this. There is now 1 CHP. 1 sheriff's unit behind him, and look really closely. There goes the rim. I can tell that.
Which, all right, so certainly CHP is still engaged.
On the shoulder. Oof.
Some really crazy moments unfolding right now. Sky 2 above it all, and again, hitting some heavier traffic, and this driver just doing anything.
This driver ran into some cars. Do we know if there were any injuries? I know you said they were parked, but was anyone hurt in that?
We didn't hear any injuries, but again, here the driver squeezing between cars. No, we didn't hear of any injuries in those parked cars. Some of the officers, or deputies, I should say, from Lakewood Sheriff's did stop to check on those vehicles as the pursuit continued. In fact, we thought it was over when he hit that vehicle, or those parked vehicles, but it continued on. There is some damage on the front passenger side of the vehicle that indicates that he did make contact with those parked cars early on in the pursuit. We joined the pursuit when it got onto the 105 from the 710, and it's been nothing but high speeds. He tried to ditch the police by going, exiting at Gage, going westbound, and then making a U-turn under the freeway, but we were able to keep up with him, and CHP now in pursuit of this vehicle. They took it over from the Sheriff's Department. But look at this, in and out of traffic here. Like I said, speeds on the freeway some lanes are completely stopped right now. So as you know, the 91 just heavy this way at this hour.
Yeah, what is the next exit? I'm sure that this guy's probably going to want to exit the freeway so he can have a little bit more leeway to try and elude officers, but that's not going to be happening with all the air.
A risk to the general public, and we have now solid visual evidence of that. They're going to have to use some more desperate measures here as the opportunity arises.
Yeah.
He's driving so aggressively and so dangerously. They do need to get him off the road. It's just impossible to do it under these circumstances. Or maybe this is a chance right now with traffic slowing down, but he seems to get away every time he appears to be trapped.
Well.
Yep, and they're going to stay on him here. I'm hearing this may be put back into surveillance mode, but still with that lead unit not too far behind him, I don't think he's going to let him get too far away, although I would not be surprised, as you're seeing right here, he's going to fall back. He's going to fall back quite a ways, and we'll see here, because now he's losing another hubcap, and now he's under the freeway. Now, we saw the last time he ended up under a big freeway, he made a U-turn. This time it looks like he's going to go back in the opposite direction, maybe take the westbound lanes of the 91, and here comes that CHP unit behind him to get back onto the freeway with him. So every time traffic gets a little too hairy for him, he just decides to switch it up and now go.
Whipping it around like that with those little tires, my picture's a little choppy. I'm watching on an iPad, but yeah, I'm telling you, when he just made all those maneuvers right there, I was getting a little bit worried. Just watching, because you just don't want to see him lose control and slide into some innocent person. There you go. We're getting back off the freeway there. This is going to give the officers and on the ground that opportunity to re-engage. Just because we don't see him there, we've seen enough of this. Alec and Christina, we've seen enough where, just because we don't see them right behind, as soon as that vehicle comes to a stop, and you'll see these other officers just kind of appear and just kind of crowd that suspect and get him into custody. Back on another really crowded street, high speeds, these crazy maneuvers. That vehicle clearly has been damaged already. This is just, it is just this recipe for disaster. And again, hopefully watching with everybody else right now, we just hope that this thing comes to an end. Maybe the car gives up, and then, that suspect will get out with hands up. But right now, opening it up, look at this, 70, almost 80 miles an hour on surface streets. This is just so dangerous. It's just so dangerous indeed.
Stu, the wording you used was just perfect. Recipe for disaster. You're so right there with those speeds. Look at that there on surface streets, driving so dangerously. This driver has no care for any other motorists there on the road. Dennis Zion, if you're still with us, I want to bring you back into the conversation and talk about what we're seeing. This driver here went Great Lakes, but staying in the Compton area.
Whoa.
Wrong way now. Wrong way.
I don't want to cut off Dennis at all. I have huge respect, but every time he does a maneuver like that, every time he drives off the road, hits a curb, something like that, that's that opportunity for that flat tire. That's that opportunity for scraping the bottom, getting a hole in the coolant system, an oil leak, something that will bring that car to an end. There you go, the sheriff's helicopter above it. And we did see one black and white there. And like I said, they are in the area. When it was on the 110 freeway, I'm home. I actually saw, cars getting kind of in position. And that's what's going on. But right now, just crazy high speeds and then running those intersections. And this is the thing, folks on the road, you're not expecting this. You're not expecting, you look out the window, you see a car coming, you're not in your mind going, oh, that guy's going 80. I can go ahead and pull out in the traffic. You're thinking everybody's driving the safe, sane speeds. And then this person is doubling, tripling.
Here
we go.
You know what the normal speeds are. This is what makes these so dangerous. This is why people get hurt. And again, this person, he stole sunglasses. I don't know if you guys know. Was there a weapon involved? I mean, is this really worth sunglasses? And maybe there's something more to this, because I find it hard to believe that all these law enforcement agencies would put this kind of effort behind this guy, knowing that he just took a pair of shades or a couple of pairs.
Dennis was saying that perhaps this guy is familiar with the law. So, Dennis, you might want to weigh in on that perspective. And also, as I was starting to say, that we are staying here in the Compton area. We've talked about suspects often going to an area that is familiar to them. This driver's gotten on the freeway, then off, back on and off.
Whoa.
Finding a way to stay in the Compton area.
We find this bizarre behavior, and Stu has seen many times from the air, and what these folks do when they're in pursuits. And this wouldn't be just stealing sunglasses. There has to be more to it. There probably had to be a robbery, some significance. They wouldn't be going through this effort for stealing a pair of sunglasses, no matter how much the sunglasses cost. So it has to be something more, a robbery with a gun or something to that effect. But what we find is bizarre driving, very hazardous, and this situation is going to continue until the individual either they're not going to surrender, they're not going to stop. They're either going to get in a crash or the car is going to become disabled.
Another one there.
One of the two. Either the car gets disabled or come to a crash. They're not going to surrender. They may be familiar with the Compton area and try and find a place to escape. But as we see, law enforcement is not giving up. But Stu was right when it comes to this bizarre driving that we see. But people aren't going to be doing this if they've committed a theft of a sunglass, and law enforcement's not going to do this type of driving. They'd let the person go and get a license plate and do a warrant or whatever the case may be. But this has to be more than just a sunglass theft at the sunglass store. And I know they're expensive, but it's not worth people's lives and this hazard that we see going on in the county of Los Angeles at this time.
Well, we have seen at least 3 or 4 very close calls as this driver has been completely reckless, driving through intersections, not minding red lights, just moving through. And we have had very close calls where crashes could have been catastrophic.
Going through them, and somebody is going to get hurt if this continues. And what's so discouraging is that there's still nobody behind him here. But it is so delicate, because how could you expect law enforcement to try and keep up with a madman like this in such dangerous traffic conditions? It is a really delicate balancing act that these officers have to weigh. But you mentioned it, David, without those lights and sirens, nobody at these intersections or approaching intersections even know that there's trouble heading in their directions, and that's when you get innocent people getting very hurt during these pursuits. There's just no way around it. When somebody is so desperate and so uncontrollable, the dangerous driving is continuing at this point for no apparent reason. Again, without anybody behind him, he is still driving so erratically and so dangerously.
Yeah, but that is the strategy of law enforcement, right? They pull back when they see that someone is driving so erratically, so that they will calm down and hopefully take the speeds down and take the temperature down, as you mentioned. But this person is not doing that.
That's the hope. That's the hope, is that maybe they will take a step back, think twice about their actions, and maybe collect their thoughts. But it already appears that there's at least one passenger in that passenger seat. It doesn't really help things, especially if there's multiple people inside the car. He threw something out the window, rolled the window back up. Again, we're dealing with a very heavily tinted window, so no matter what angle we get, we really can't make out how many people are inside there. But when you have multiple suspects egging each other on and enjoying the joyride, which is no fun, by the way, this is a dangerous and scary ride for anybody who is in that car, whether they're there willingly or against their will. This is just a frightening maneuvers that we're to get back on the 91 potentially.
Yeah, I wonder what his end game is. He's got to be thinking about how is he going to get out of this. Does he pull over someplace? Does he find a way out? He's not going to outrun law enforcement. We have seen occasions where they'll go into a covered parking where the helicopter can't see them, and especially when they're in tracking mode, and it takes a while for officers on the ground to reach that area. We've seen that happen before, but right now this guy just seems bent on taking any path that he can find, and there's no redundancy either. There's not a pattern here, so they could determine how to do spike strips or anything like that. He seems to be going everywhere, Chris.
Yeah, it's really discerning because the options are limited here, and especially knowing that these guys aren't, or at least the original report was that the robbery was not an armed robbery. You still have a deadly weapon that they are dealing with. That vehicle is a deadly weapon that is now posing a threat to not only the motorists trying to get home from work here, but also the units that eventually go to make that felony stop and bring this to an end, which is all going to play into that final decision. You got to hope at this point that maybe, just maybe, and we've seen it many, many times, maybe he ends up in the wrong place at the wrong time. Look at this, a bicyclist coming the opposite way on that shoulder there as oh man, he is pushing it. He's pushing his luck, but maybe by happenstance, one of these officers will get lucky and happen to have a spike strip handy to set up. But it's just so difficult, especially when a driver's making so many random turns, you know?
Yeah, I was expecting him to tap that car out of the way, but he didn't do it.
Look at his car, how beat up
it is. Oh my gosh, look at that.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah. You know, I mean, so far it's mostly cosmetic damage, but it just takes, you know, one big hit, and that could immobilize the vehicle in a heartbeat if he happens to hit an object or a tree or, you know, anything. But he just
pedestrian
takes your breath away every time he approaches these red lights because he hasn't stopped for a single one. And as you can see, lots of people walking around, biking, walking, trying to, you know, move on with their day, have no idea that this dangerous situation is closing in on them, and that's why it's always preferable to see these pursuits on the freeway, which is exactly where he is resorting to, once again deciding to get back on the freeway. But now we're on the opposite side of the 91 that we were showing you earlier. When we first pulled up, this is right around the area where we caught him, except he was going the opposite way on the 91 at Cherry Avenue. Now he's going eastbound on the 91, just passing Cherry Avenue. So after all of those shenanigans, we've ended up in the exact same spot that we picked this pursuit up just in the, maybe 30 minutes ago when we joined you live.
Yeah.
And now he is going, again, opposite that original direction, eastbound on the 91, hugging that carpool lane once again.
And we have seen this in other pursuits where the suspect who's evading police will stay in the same area, and we always assume that it's an area that they're familiar with. And maybe that's the case here again.
So often, and it makes you, the psychology behind that is in some ways obvious, but in other ways it's very fascinating. But in any event, sure enough, like so many of them, we have now ended up right where this all started. Too soon to say if it's going to end in the same area, but he has just taken those law enforcement units and helicopters for a wild joyride for no reason at all, putting so many lives in danger, all to end up back where this started. I don't think he's going to get away, not at this rate. Plenty of helicopters now keeping an eye on him and ground units monitoring him, even though the pursuit is off. At least it's on the freeway. Maybe I spoke too soon because it looks like he's getting off of the freeway. The hope is that he will stay on the freeway and just burn more fuel. But in any event, looks like he's gotten off the freeway. Will he go through it, or will he make a southbound turn? Looks like he's going to make a southbound turn onto Downey Avenue. And now he is back in LA County Sheriff's jurisdiction, pulling into a residential neighborhood. Actually looks like a McDonald's parking lot. Check that. It's a McDonald's parking lot at a strip mall on Downey Avenue, and I'll try and get this cross. It looks like he's right at, he's cutting through, coming out on Artesia Boulevard. Yep, just cut through that parking lot, which was dangerous enough, but in any event, now going the opposite way on Artesia Boulevard.
Yeah. Another right.
A big circle around this.
He's just meandering this neighborhood, not with any idea. It doesn't seem that he knows where he's going. He's just desperately looking for something.
Yeah. And to your point earlier, this is so nerve-wracking. We're on the edge of our seats, right, watching to see, when the worst might happen, when he might have a serious collision with another vehicle.
Yes, with the speeds he's willing to do, that's what you're afraid of. The inkling that I'm getting...
Is this one of those rope-a-dopes where he pulled up, or maybe he got a hold of somebody and they were waiting underneath that overpass? We've seen that in the past, too.
Yeah.
Again, now would be the time for those cruisers to just magically appear. and to make their way over there, or at least to that intersection, at least stop that person of interest right there, or that other person of interest, and see maybe is the car parked underneath the overpass. But right now, I don't have access to the scanner, so I can't even really hear what the conversation is with law enforcement. But clearly, the camera person today in Skyfox really keeping an eye on that one male that just basically walked out from that underpass. So there you go. You got
there we see some cruisers that are moving away.
So hopefully the sheriff's helicopter's up there, and hopefully there is communication between the ground units. And again, this person walking away, definitely suspicious. Is it the suspect? Your guess is really as good as mine.
Yeah, well, and Dennis, that's part of the challenge. We were talking about this a little earlier, that because of the policies that we as a society have adopted to allow our overpasses to essentially become home to homeless encampments that are not really well patrolled, there are a lot of people that live under there, and there's a lot of places you could hide under there, and there's a lot of people that could pop out. And it's hard to figure out what's going on. It's not like it's just a clean area where somebody would stand out.
That's correct. Well, what we find is individuals walking away. The ground unit should be close by.
They are. They're there. They just pulled up, Dennis.
There we go.
Is outside of the car.
All right, here comes another sheriff's unit looking for those, okay, step.
So you'll see the officers draw their weapons and try to take this man into custody, but he's wearing very dark clothes, so he's tough to tell, but he's just behind the shed.
If that's the individual, they'll be able to connect this fingerprints of the individual, fingerprints in the car, etc. If this is in fact the individual who is driving that car, they'll be able to connect them together. I don't know if anyone has a photo of the individual at the time, or if the air unit was able to get that, but there's ways to link this person to that car, and they will utilize that to make sure it's the right person they take into custody.
Let's paint a picture here for our viewers. It looks like you have officers there with their guns drawn, pointing in a certain direction. Perhaps they have insight on the ground to tell if the person they're looking for is in those bushes there behind that shed or whatever that is there. But obviously now our concern is for officer safety or safety of the residents, people who live in that home there. There's been no sign of anybody home, or perhaps they're indoors. But right now, a concern as we watch this is officer safety and what can they see or not see if somebody's in those bushes.
Well, that's true, and they have to be very cautious. If the individual does have a weapon, can start shooting at the officers and deputies, so they have to be extremely cautious approach. And hopefully the air unit, with the devices the air unit has, they'll be able to determine if there's some
off ramp.
Yes,
all right,
top of the
tilt
screen.
up just a little bit, Josh. Or
I saw movement in that corner.
Yeah, I did see a dog there.
Well, it wouldn't be surprising at all, but he's obviously running. It sounds like they're still looking for the female from what I'm hearing, but they do have that male driver cornered there. It's just a matter of time. Make sure there's no hazards in their way.
And can you
Looks
see
like
what
he
he's
climbed
holding?
through those.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can you see what he's holding?
Yeah.
It appears like he's holding.
Looks like his hands are up.
His hands are
or
up.
something is in his
Got
something.
a cell phone.
His phone. He's got his cell phone in his left hand, holding his right hand up, and now it's clear that he must be coming to terms that this is over. Hopefully he maintains that posture and begins to comply with those sheriff's units.
It looks like he's talking on the phone.
He is talking to somebody, and it looks like it appears as though he's complying. We'll see in the next couple seconds here, but it certainly appears as though he is communicating with those officers.
Yeah, he's talking to somebody either on the phone. Yeah, here he comes.
Yeah, they are. Okay.
All right.
So the female suspect, we believe this is the driver, a dangerous driver who's now being taken into custody. Thankfully, no other injuries that we've been aware of here, even though that was a wild chase.
Wow.
As far as we could tell, David and Giovanna, the female passenger is still being sought in this immediate vicinity. So as we see them take the driver into custody, the search is now on for the female passenger. And it looks like this is coming to a peaceful resolution, but man, some heart-stopping moments, especially in the last 5-10 minutes there. Such a desperate driver trying to get away, just for no reason at all, putting so many lives in danger at those red lights, and now this has come to an end.
And the collateral damage, a number of cars have been hit, and you also heard that perhaps a store of some sort or a sunglass place might have gotten hit. Anyway, that's at least we could be thankful we didn't see a real horrible tragedy occur, and it did get tricky when he jumped out from being in that underpass there. He knew what he was doing when it comes to scrutiny from above, but they still got him. So good work by law enforcement.
Yeah, a lot of senseless damage. You know, you don't know what's going through people's minds, but we can all breathe a sigh of relief because no one was hurt that we know of.
Right. All right, we're going to stay on this a little bit longer while they continue to search through the situation. Have you heard? Oh,
and there's the other passenger. That's the other passenger, and they now have both people in custody.
All right.
It's going to be on Indiana Avenue. They have taken the other passenger into custody. So now 2 people being detained after just a wild chase.
Right. A scary chase at that, and a number of people were hit, but hopefully nobody was injured in all of that. That was pretty dangerous. Great work, Chris, and good job by law enforcement to kind of find their way to that location, and they got them both.
Yeah, sure did. Okay, moving on to other news.
IP pack shot when they were together.
Very lengthy. High enforcement are now in custody. Sorry, Harry, what was your question? It's right off the nose. So okay. So look for, okay, you see the McDonald's and the Motel 6 sign on the south side of the freeway? Yeah, there's a McDonald's and a Motel 6 sign. You just have to hop the freeway and it's on the north side. By the off-ramp. Yep, yeah, exactly. Assignment test from the chopper. Hey Jack, just checking in. Okay, copy. So Harry, we're done here. If you just want to go east. Hey Harry. Yeah, go ahead and clear out to the east. Yeah, just clear out to the east.